Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Heavy J.
I'm Big Mama.
I'm the Bog Wizard.
And today we're going to be answering questions. So, what's our first question? Let's find out. We got a person that writes, running a homebrew Pathfinder 1st Edition campaign. And one of the PCs wants to kill the leadership of the city run by the Church of Asmodeus. What are some pros and cons of this decision?
So the leaders of the church or the leaders of the city? I'm sorry.
He says that he wants to kill the leadership of the city, and the city is run by the Church of Asmodeus.
So it's like a city that has a church.
Yeah, it's like a
theocracy.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of depends on here, right? So is the whole city, like the people of the city, is it like they're not supportive, like they want to overthrow the government? Because that could be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
If the city is supportive of this government, that could be very bad.
Oh yeah, that could be real. That could go sideways fast for the party.
Yeah. If you get caught, it could be bad. Even if you don't get caught, think about it. They're going to just replace them with new ones. So I'm going to assume that the people don't support the leadership because that's the only way it seems logical, right?
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, as a storyteller, this could be a really cool chance to do story, like another story. Mm-hmm. So if they decide to like try to overthrow the city's government, you could write a storyline that like they're wanted criminals now. And there's this big reward out for their heads.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, especially
That's
like
cool.
if the city's really poor or they have like really poor citizens, they have to be wary of like those citizens who want to bounty hunt them.
Yeah, and I was thinking all like James Bond. Like you got to send a spy into the court to find out like everything you need to know, and you need scouts and information and. Yeah, that could be really fun, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think our party could do that for like 6 months.
And Asmodeus typically actually exists in the campaigns or D&Ds.
He does.
So you could have to worry about the wrath of a god.
Yeah, we did a campaign where it was Asmodeus was a villain and Tiamat was also a villain, but they were working against each other and the parties were caught in the middle. So, yeah, that was really fun campaign that we had. I think without like more background on what's going on in this, it's a little hard to specifically drill down on what he wants. But you both bring up some really good points about how that can become something.
Yeah, it could become a lot of something. That could, like I said, really go on for. It's not like you're just gonna get in and get out and assassinate them. Mm-hmm. Although I just got to say, I think you brought up the character build of the druid assassin we were talking about before. So you go in there and kill him with like spores and fungi. That was the first thing I
That was a good video.
You have to sneak in and become a chef for the High Council.
Yeah.
Poison the poison.
Yeah, that could be really fun. But then
go pick some poison mushrooms and kind of slip it in.
Yeah, because you gotta send, like I said, scouts and spies. So it's gonna take a long time to develop this, to go in and do the assassination, and then you have the whole you're being chased and you're wanted. Mm-hmm. So it could be a whole thing for a long time if you play it right?
Yeah, absolutely. Next question. Help me end my campaign in an epic way. I think that's the goal of every Dungeon Master.
Isn't that always?
Yeah, that's how I try to end mine. Players are traveling to a city locked off from all other planes and frozen in time. I like this. This is going good. Ooh. They kind of messed up, so the 7 MacGuffins are all held by the followers of either Orcus or Jubilex. As we know, those are evil demons or devils. Both groups are already in the city and need to combine them to summon their master. Okay, with you so far. The two factions are warring over the city. By the time the players arrive, they'll be firmly entrenched in various locations. The city itself is pretty messed up. Teleportation and plane shift do not work here, and there are areas of intense wild magic as well as areas of anti-magic. Oh yeah, this place is messed up, but it sounds very intriguing. The party will need to take out the leader of both groups and combine the stones themselves for their purposes. Depending on how this goes, it may require fighting one or both of the big bads. My players are powerful, around 16th or 17th level, and kind of cocky. Yeah, tell me some characters that aren't, right? I want this to be a challenge. I've got a few ideas, but I'd love to get some fun inspiration in terms of locations and encounters. So that's what he's looking for.
I mean, it's a place frozen in time.
And
That could be pretty cool. It sounds kind of like a Chronos type situation. Like maybe the players can find out why it's frozen in time, and that would be kind of cool. Like have a place outside of there
and maybe disrupt that,
and
so
disrupt it.
Yeah, so it comes back into
Boy.
the time continuum. Boy, I can't talk.
Yeah, that's a big word.
That's a big word you're tripping over. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as encounters and things, I feel like with the whole wild magic and the no magic zones, you got to take advantage of that, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to have like the leader of one can be in the wild magic area, and a little leader of the other is going to be in a no magic zone. So it would force your players to be able to deal with both,
right? And
be prepared with contingencies, assuming they know. I mean, I would think as players, you'd have to scout and know what you were getting into.
Yeah, this sounds like it's been going on for a while. They'd have to figure it out by now. Like, if I was a wizard and I try to cast spells and the dungeon master is like, nope, I'd be like, huh.
Yeah, you think by 16th level they'd be like...
Kind of nerfs your wizards and your, warlocks and whatnot, so...
Yeah, you got to figure out how you're going to cast magic in the wild magic area without killing your own party. Yeah.
Right.
Or be prepared. Yeah.
So I had a couple of thoughts when I read this question. I just jotted down some ideas. For location, I was thinking maybe he could create like a frozen citadel or cathedral. A frozen cathedral of time. This would be like a central location where the time magic is strongest. It's guarded by some like clockwork constructs maybe. And time warping traps and creatures frozen in time. The players may need to manipulate the wild magic or the anti-magic zones to access this area. So there's one location. As far as encounters, I put down something like kind of like a macabre masquerade. The players could, infiltrate a grand masquerade ball organized by the Orcus followers. And they'd need to navigate political intrigue while avoiding demonic cultists and uncovering one of the locations of the MacGuffins. So that was kind of my ideas. Any thoughts about that?
No, you really detailed. I like that. I like that a lot.
I mean, there is 7 MacGuffins, so this would be a campaign that would take a while to complete.
Yeah. And they're at 16th and 17th level. I imagine that maybe he's trying to get the party up to 20th level and max them all out. So this would give him, 3 to 4 levels in which to really kind of expand this encounter. And those are just a couple of my ideas.
Maybe time unfreezes with every MacGuffin you get.
Oh yeah,
a little bit.
Like
the MacGuffins are being used to keep the the time freeze going.
Yeah, maybe the MacGuffins can be used to destroy the device that's causing the anti-magic or the wild magic that's being put on this place. So.
Yeah, and like I want to say, I think it was Wheel of Time where they have the seals and each one causes a little more damage and a little more until you have that build up, which is always fun.
Yeah, Wheel of Time, those are some great books. I really enjoyed reading Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. And Brandon Sanderson, just a shout out to him. I thought he did a wonderful job concluding that story when Mr. Jordan passed on. Yeah. Anyway, third question. I'm listening to a podcast that advocates decreasing the frequency of rolls out of combat. In addition to the typical, if it's needed for the story, don't require a roll and actual consequences on a failure. They also talk about using single rolls for region/area/series of what D&D requires as an individual roll. It's kind of a complicated question, but he gives an example. For example, in a dungeon, requiring a single notice or dungeoneering roll to identify traps and having it cover several hallways and rooms. I like the idea of this, but I'm having trouble thinking about how I would narrate it in practice or other examples besides traps. Does anybody else do this, and how do you narrate the checks that cover more than single instances without your players quibbling for new rolls constantly? I think we should kind of do a video on this, but anyway.
Yeah, I feel like that was a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Wait, and let me make sure I understand this. He's trying to limit the rolls?
Yeah, so he's watching
back on the
he's watching or listening to a podcast that advocates decreasing, rolls for outside of combat.
I don't advocate that.
I think that's the gist of it.
I feel like your players are gonna get bored. Like that. Come on, it's D&D. We're here to roll the dice.
So, I watched a video one time by the guy that does the Runehammer channel. Okay, and it used to be called Drunkens and Dragons. And this is Hankerin Furnell. And Hankerin's kind of a genius. I mean, he's thought of a lot of really cool game mechanics that actually make Dungeons and Dragons a lot better to play. And one video in particular I watched was where he had the DC for the room, when a character would enter a room or the party would enter a room, would have one DC, like DC 14, for the entire room. So no matter what the characters did, the roll was always 14 for that room.
So, but you're still rolling a lot.
You're still rolling.
You're just, DC's not changing.
But the DC's not changing. And I thought that was kind of clever.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'm not sure that I like what this podcast that this guy's listening to, which I don't know what it is. He never says. But to make things less complicated when rolling, I kind of like what Hankerin Furnell over at Runehammer does. But so I kind of thought about this question a little bit, and this is what I said. Clearly define the scope. Before calling for a single roll to cover a large area, be clear about what the roll encompasses. Okay? In your example of identifying traps in a dungeon, specify which hallways and rooms this includes. This helps the expectations for both the players and the DM. So that's one way of doing it, but I don't know. I don't know about this podcast or that. I'm just really the concept of just one roll covers everything that's going on. The players love to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but players love to roll dice.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's what we're here for. It's Dungeons and Dragons. Everybody wants to roll their dice, especially if you buy fancy dice, which some people do.
Especially if you fancy gambling.
Yeah.
It kind of is like a gamble.
Well, and my concern with minimizing the rolling dice and having one to cover the area is you're going to have players low key fighting, or you're going to have hard feelings over they're always rolling. It's my turn to roll, and I want to roll. And why would you do that?
Right. Absolutely. Next question, and this might be our last question for the night. Hello, everyone. I was wondering, since the end of the OGL conflict, how has the community's gaming habits changed?
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not a contributor in that way. I don't design anything, so I absolutely supported the people that do. Right. But it didn't change the way I play.
Yeah, it didn't change the way I played either, or designed games.
OGL, is that when they had the online Dungeons and Dragons?
No, that's the open gaming license.
I think that answers the question. She didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
Didn't affect us as players.
Yeah, I think as content creators, it really could have been really bad for them. 100%. And there's a lot of arguments to be made about why that would be a bad thing, and I agree with almost all of them. I back up these guys that make and design third-party stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. I love some of the stuff that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as far as a dungeon master that doesn't create stuff for public consumption, or my players, it didn't impact me at all.
Yeah, how are they gonna know? Are they gonna come into your house and arrest you?
Yeah.
They're trying to copyright.
It only affects people that are creating things and selling it. Right. So from a commercial perspective. And which absolutely, like you said, I feel like that is completely necessary. You can't have that monopoly there. That was my concern with it. But since it's been resolved, I don't have any.
Is this kind of like the Disney situation where Disney doesn't own the rights to Snow White, just like their own design?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can squeeze in one more question.
Okay.
Would rain make it easier or more difficult to track a wagon from 2 days earlier?
It could be because if it's a muddy trail, the rain could just smooth out the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like if it was like windy and hurricane, any like broken twigs or leaves could be moved. So I'd say it'd make tracking a little harder.
Yeah. Well, it depends because if they went through the mud and it wasn't washed out, and then it dried afterwards, you'd have a path to follow.
Right.
So it'd make it easier. So not enough information. It could go either way.
Yeah, there's like not enough information at all to answer
What do you
this
want
question.
it to do? Create that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much rain fell and what the weather conditions were. Also depends a lot on the terrain. But here's my answer to this. This is all covered in the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you look in Chapter 8 on page 242, they have a table about tracking, and it offers rules on tracking and the appropriate DCs that would go along with this. Now, depending on, the weather and things like that, you can take these general difficulty check levels that they give you, or target numbers, and modify them accordingly. So, yeah, just look in the Dungeon Master Guide, and I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, if you want it to be easier, say that their tracks dried and now you can see them clearly. If you want it to be harder, say they're washed out.
Yeah.
You're the DM. You decide.
Yeah.
I mean, and your party could be like, can we get a dog? And then the dog could just smell the wagon.
Yeah. Where's your
much
druid?
easier.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it depends on your players. That's a really great point.
Yeah.
Because are they in favor? Is it a favored terrain for a druid or a ranger, that sort of thing?
That's right.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors in there.
A lot of factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't just answer that question. It's just not one of those things. All I can do is give my best advice. Look in the DMJ. And then look at the characters that are playing, and then you can figure out from there.
And who are your characters again?
Yeah.
What
are their classes?
Are they in the wagon and they're worried about being tracked? Because, okay, players, we know how to cover up tracks, right? Drag something behind it, whatever. So that could be a good point.
Yeah, or you're tracking the bad guy, the big bad.
Yeah, if the
big
bad
bad
guy
evil guy, the BBG.
everywhere. Nobody could track your scent.
Is the wagon, is there a threat that's chasing them and they don't have time to properly cover their tracks and hide? There's a lot that comes into play there. You can go any way you want.
I think that's a lot of, I think a lot of these questions, it just depends. But yeah, I give, whatever advice we can to help these guys out. Well, that's everything that we have for you today. We're going to wrap this up. And as always, make sure that you like, subscribe, and remember, ride that fat dragon. Have a wonderful day. I'm Heavy J.
I'm Big Mama.
I'm the Bog Wizard.
Later.